What is going on, everyone? It is Tyler McKinney back here again. And listen, today we're going to go ahead and we're going to react to Sunday's XFL games. Whew. If you didn't like those games, you don't like football. Hey, if it's your first time here, glad to have you. If you're a return viewer, thanks for coming back and thanks for watching more videos. And if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing. Guys, we're almost there, almost at 1,000 subscribers. And, you know, that really opens up what we can do with this channel. So please, encourage, I just encourage you to go ahead and subscribe. And hey, if you have other football fans that like football and would love to, be part of a community where we can interact and talk about football, I'd love to have them here too. All right, let's go ahead and let's break down these games. Let's look at the first game, and that's the lazy afternoon game. The funny thing is I turned on my TV at 2 o'clock, and I was kind of like, trying to figure out what was going on because there wasn't a game on yet. Why? Because they started it at 3 this week. I'll take it though. I was an hour ready and early and ready to go. I was panicking, but hey, I still made it. I was there, and it was a fun game. It was kind of a weird game starting off between the Renegades and the Wildcats, and this game was really just kind of a tale of teams figuring it out, and one team figuring it out and the other team not. And what really stood out to me was just how Dallas really kept their composure. And it really made the distinction to me about how they're going to be a good team. And it shows the difference in, Landry Jones to what Matt McGloin did. So we saw the destruction and dismantlement of Matt McGloin on Saturday afternoon. We saw the just kind of the poise and the ability to just adapt by Landry Jones, and just the way that they both took things and did things. Matt McGloin, you could tell that he was frustrated. It came off of him that way. And the other thing is listen, we just got to get better. We just got to get better. It was always this team focus thing, which is totally good. You focus on the team, but when you make mistakes, you need to own them and you need to show that. And I guess you could say in the kind of way he did. But listen, Landry Jones, you could definitely tell he had rust on him. And once he got the rust off, he threw the ball nicely. But he took everything on himself. They came over and asked him, what was that? Listen, I just made a bad play. I need to play better. I need to do better. And as the game progressed, he got better. And the team, they figured it out. It was really neat to kind of see this progression for Dallas as they went through things. Landry Jones, it wasn't one of his best days. Now, granted, he had 70% completion rating, which granted they threw a lot of small passes and things like that, but they started going down the field, which I thought was better. And that's what you get with him that you're not going to get with Nelson. He's going to take those shots down the field and put the ball there. There were a couple balls that he missed guys by just a little bit on. But you could tell probably at the end of that first half, into the second half, he just flipped a switch and, came out firing, looking good. And I think to where this is going to be a springboard for them to go forward. They faced some adversity, and they kind of figured some things out. The running game looked absolutely fantastic for Dallas. I really, really like that. I like the 1-2 punch with Dunbar and Artis Payne. Artis Payne, man, the guy has some wheels. That's one thing that I've really started to notice about the XFL, and I really like that we're starting to see athletes be able to be athletes. These guys are starting to stand out. We're starting to see these names because these guys are making some great, just athletic plays, to where, no longer is a guy like Nelson Spruce who is getting all these balls thrown at him and catching everything in sight, catching touchdown after touchdown. Listen, he's going to be a guy that we're going to be talking about here because he's given the opportunity to be the athlete and who he is and the great player that he is. And Cameron Artis Payne is no exception here. Just the speed that he had to not only, he's doing college things in a pro game. Most of these players have been on a pro team or they've been on, training. They've been in the NFL at some extent. These guys these guys this is not college football players. He is literally running around them and having enough speed to get the corner and get the edge, and he scored 2 touchdowns that way. Just fantastic. The guy's averaged over 7 yards a carry, had 99 yards. It's like, come on, man. We just needed you to get 1 more yard to have our first 100-yard rusher. But, hey, it looked great. Dallas actually ran the ball really well. Once they figured out how to run the ball and attack the kind of the middle of LA's defense, they were done. That's really kind of the story. Dallas figured it out, and LA had a couple opportunities. They had a couple interceptions, and they just never capitalized on any of it. They left a lot out there on the field. And again, things were better than what I thought they would be. Now, granted, I got the win that Dallas covered this point spread for me. So, there I can, go ahead and breathe a sigh of relief on that one. We had our 4.5 point spread there. So we covered that. But it wasn't the blowout that I thought they would be. And Winston Moss took things over the defense. The defense seemed to be humming a little bit better. But in all honesty, listen, they gave up more yards than what they gave up last week. And, and I might even, say that they're off. They didn't take the opportunities that they had available to them and really punch it in. And I don't know, Hood is running strong, but 2 fumbles inside the 10-yard line when you're rushing the ball, you can't do that. You can't do that. And still, I was surprised that they kept coming with him. Rose is a guy I would like to see them, accentuate a little bit more, but I don't think he's really the body type that can really take that bruising and pounding, that downhill running that they want to do, that Hood does. And so, yeah, I was just kind of really just kind of surprised by one that LA hung in there as long as they did, and that they weren't the big story here for me is that they weren't able to capitalize on things, and you could just tell that this team's still trying to figure things out. And they're not there. They're behind the 8 ball, definitely. Now I think Winston Moss is definitely getting a lot out of their guys, but they're not there, and they're making the mistakes where Dallas was starting to figure things out. And once Dallas figured things out, they had the late touchdown, but Dallas, pretty much went back and they put this thing away. They figured out how to beat this defense. And like I said, once Landry Jones got that rust off, got things figured out, he was fine, and he's going to be fine for the rest of the season. I think he's going to look really, really good. And to where I think that this Dallas team now is ready to roll and continue to rack up some wins here. And so, all in all, though, it was a game. It was a nice afternoon game. It kept you involved. You could, if you wanted to, doze off here and there and come back and still be fine. If you wanted to take that Sunday afternoon cat nap, lay back and watch the game with one eye, that's the kind of, game it was. And if you wanted to be intense into the game and watch it, you could, and watch every play. And so I really enjoyed the game, and it was nice to see the game inside the game. It was kind of cool there for a little while. I'm not a huge fan of the whole let's talk about this, let's go into what this coach is saying, it's okay. The thing I'm kind of getting sick and tired of, though, is just kind of the commentary, like Joey Galloway trying to figure out and say every play and like try to predict it. You're not Tony Romo. You're not going to do that. Just get to calling the game and calling the game that you should, because what happens is I don't know. It was like more than a handful of times. Like he says that a play's going to do this and it doesn't do it at all, and then he's got to come up and make an excuse for it. Like, stop. Just stop trying to predict a play. Just call the play as it is. Tell us about these players and do that. That's what I love about Joel Klatt. He does a fantastic job of telling us what these players do, who they are, what they did in college, what to expect from them, and give us that other insight. I could care less about whether or not you can predict where a play is going to go. Stop. Even we're even getting into that, like with the Fox guys. They kind of started getting into that a little bit. They weren't as bad with it. They just kind of, oh, this sounds like a such and such call. I bet you we'll probably see it here. It's kind of an off the cuff type of a thing, and so that was fine. But this whole like trying to predict plays things and like try to like show me how smart you are. Like, I'm not watching this game to see how smart Joey Galloway is. Like, add something to it for me. Quit trying to predict it and add value with your speaking, and not just it being something that's that you're showing me how smart you are. That's not why I'm watching this. I'm watching this for football. So add to that experience of football. That's why you're out there, So that kind of takes me away from it a little bit. As I look at this, listen, Bidet is a dynamic player. They just got a lot of really good pieces there in Dallas that I really, really like. Parham is coming on. He's a big boy at 6'8" and very, very athletic. And I think you're going to start to see them really, really work him in there. I think that if you're looking for somebody this upcoming week, I don't know what kind of a value he will be, but he's definitely that type of tight end / wide receiver that you're going to want to see and want to pick up and have in your lineup, especially if he's a good value. I'll try to look at some of that stuff for some of you guys that are into that, that day drafting and stuff. I've never gotten into it. I don't know a whole lot about it, but we'll definitely look at some of those other guys. Let's see here. Also, Nagel's a shifty little guy. He didn't get a whole lot there, but I really liked his return, and he's working hard, and it's kind of neat to see what happens with him. But really, the story here is Cameron Artis-Payne just taking the game over, and Landry Jones settling down and making some really nice throws as the game went on. So I thought that was pretty good. Elijah Wood, if he holds on to the ball and they score a couple more times, this score is flopped. I mean, it's more like they win 27-18, something like that. I mean, literally, it's like a flop of the game. Those 2 red zone turnovers are huge, and they're both on him. The one was he didn't get he let them strip him of the ball, and the second one was he didn't take the handoff correctly from Josh Johnson. Those are both on him, and it just needs to play better. LA, the other thing too is if they're gonna run the style of offense that they're gonna run like this, they really need to get that downhill running going, because that run is going to open up the rest of their passing. Now, I think Josh Johnson came in and played a really good game. Looking at the things there, it's hard to give him any qualms. Now, he threw a little over 50% of his balls. You'd like to see that get up a little higher, but almost 200 yards passing. A really a decent outing there. And so, I thought that was pretty good. Dallas's defense got better as the game went on. And, LA Wildcats, their defense is just about there. However, they didn't make – so in a football game, as you're looking at things and as I go about it and as I look at things, right? So the game has an ebb and flow to it. And teams figure things out, and then they adjust, figure things out, and then they adjust and figure things out. Dallas had some issues. The defense was giving them some struggles. They adjusted, figured it out. And you could see that starting to happen at right before the half, especially when they started in that 2-minute offense and went right from there through the end of the game, to where they figured some things out, they adjusted, and then it was a struggle for LA to refigure that out. The LA tried to adjust a few things, but then Dallas just readjusted, and that was really the telltale sign of things. It came down to the importance of the Dallas offense continuing to score and the LA defense not being able to slow them down in the second half, as opposed to the Dallas defense slowing down the Wildcats. They took advantage, and I really like the way that I think that Dallas has a decent defense, and I think it's going to continue to show. They are wide receivers. If they're going to be on, there are defensive backs. If they're going to be out on islands, they really need to work on getting their heads around and not being so handsy. I think that really got them in trouble in a couple of spots to really continue some drives down the field where they really shouldn't have. But all in all, they really had some takeaways and some things, and they stepped up when they needed to. And you can't really say the same for the LA defense. As I'm looking at these guys, Hood needs to step up in his running game. There's no doubt about that. They need to figure out the run game. That's really going to open up the pass game, and I think that's going to bode well for them. Nelson Spruce is a stud. I don't know how much you can say about it. I mean, the guy's a possession wide receiver. He knows how to get downfield and make big plays down the field. He can pretty much do it all. The guy has just amazing hands. You throw it around him, he's going to make the catch. He just ball hawks. I said, I can't say enough about him. Smallwood is another guy who's really kind of coming on really nicely. I like the way that he's working with things here and that. But for me, when I'm looking at this, I think that they need to open up that run game. I think they need to. Rose is pretty dynamic. And I would like to see them figure out ways to get him a little bit more open in space and see if he can kind of do some things and add to what Spruce and Smallwood are doing. But yeah, they need to figure out that running game. I think if they can figure out that running game and get consistent with that running game, I think that they're going to do some stuff. Like right now, they're averaging, somewhere around 3 yards a carry, and they really need to be up more around 4 or 5 yards a carry for this offense to really, really thrive. It's definitely a run to open up the pass offense. Now, I think that Josh Johnson is a great addition. He takes this offense to the next level. So we'll see how things progress throughout the weeks with them and, how they evolve this offense. I think I'd like to really see Josh Johnson do some RPO stuff. The guy's really shifty. He can extend the play. And I think if you get him, Hood and Rose going with some stuff, I think it might open up Spruce some more and Smallwood and maybe some of these other guys to where they can get the ball to them. I'd really like to see something with that to really be able to utilize Josh Johnson's ability to be evasive and his ability as an athlete, and then to open up plays for him to throw the ball down the field with his accuracy and that with it. I think he played a pretty decent game, but unfortunately, Dallas was just too much for him. All in all, I feel like LA played a little better than what I thought they would. Dallas came out just flat and not really knowing what to do, and then figured things out in the second half. And that's why this game is kind of a little bit closer than what I thought it would be. But hey, I'll take the win all day long. Give me the win. And so I think that's kind of but a very, very good afternoon game. Fantastic. For watching football purposes, especially if you don't have a dog in the fight, I think it was a fun game to watch. And let's go ahead and let's just talk a little bit about the attendance there. They had just under 15,000 people. Now, that's not a very large stadium, so it filled up the stadium fairly well. The crowd was getting into it there, especially early on. And, that's a very, very, especially for a first game, startup league, 15,000 people, that's very, very respectable. They were, like I said, they were just under 15,000 people. So definitely a great atmosphere there in LA. I know it's a smaller venue, but I thought all in all it was a pretty good thing. I really wish that they'd figure out with the very vibrant colors from Dallas and the way that they had the viewing, everything seemed a bit bright coming off the field and that with it. So where if they can maybe throw some ND filters on those cameras to tone down the colors a little bit, and that I think would be a little bit easier, a little bit better, more pleasing to the eye. But in all honesty, the production value and quality by ESPN has been fantastic. It's been good. So those are my thoughts on the first game. All right, so let's go ahead and let's move to the second game. And boy, was that a fun game. That was like a college, game day, late night, Saturday night atmosphere. It was a fun game. I truly enjoyed it. Fox did a fantastic job with the whole production of everything, putting it out there. And when you have two good teams playing against one another and putting on a show, that's what you get. I mean, it just was fantastic. Let's go ahead and let's talk about some of the stuff outside of football, then we'll move inside of football, okay? First and foremost, attendance. Attendance for the whole week was up 10%. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that believe it or not, Seattle put almost 30,000 people, over 29,000 people into that stadium, which is huge. First game at home for a startup like that in the rain. That's right. They were in the rain, and 29,000 people still decided to come on out and support their Dragons, who ended up getting the win. Now, in DC, they had a few hundred people less than what they did in the first game, but still very respectable, over 17,000 people. And then you go ahead and, I'm sorry, I think it was just over 15,000 people there in DC. And then they had just under 15,000 people there in LA. And remember, DC and LA play in smaller kind of soccer style stadiums, to where when you get that many people in there, they're filling up a majority of the seats there. So, 15,000 people in DC and having 15,000 people there in LA is a majority of the stadium. They're filling up a majority of the seats. So it looks like a full stadium, to where it's really nice and it creates a nice atmosphere there. Now in Houston, they're playing where the Cougars play, in TDECU, I'm going to get it down, stadium there. And that stadium holds quite a few more, but they still had over 17,000 people this week there. Great showing, especially with playing back-to-back weeks there. So you had all the hype from the first week, and to keep almost all those people, but a few hundred people in the stadium, I think is a huge win. The league, like I said, is the attendance is up 10%, which is huge. And if you know anything about the NFL has been struggling with their attendance and trying to get people to the games and really work with that. So for them to go from week 1 to week 2 to gain people, that is a big, big deal. Listen, I'm going to say this again. Great atmosphere, especially from watching it on TV. Like I said, this was like a college football Saturday night game day type of experience for me with this game. The game was electrifying. It was fun. It went down to the wire. Both teams showcasing the talent that they had. And you're going to hear me say this over and over again, and I've been saying it a lot. The XFL has been able to showcase their talent. One of the things that's been difficult, that was very, very difficult for the AAF, is they weren't able to showcase the talent that they had at the skill position players. And so when you look at this, now, a lot of people say, well, a lot of these guys played in the AAF, and the only difference is that, they've got a lot more exposure, this and that. There is that. But I will tell you that a majority of these quarterbacks did not play in the AAF, and that's where you're seeing a big, big difference here. Majority of these players, a majority of these players did not play in the AAF. A lot of them did, but a lot of these guys are off of practice squads from the NFL. But we got two dynamic quarterbacks slugging it out in this game. Neither one of them have played in the AAF at all. All right, I'm going to stop talking about the AAF because the XFL is much, much better in all facets. I have been just ecstatic with the production value, with the access that we're getting, with the innovation of the game, the fast-pacedness of the game of football, but yet it's still football and not weird with it. The XFL knows what they're doing, what they want to do, and what they want to put out there on the field. And this now goes back to what I'm saying. They're allowing their athletes, their players, to be athletes, to be players, getting the balls in their hands, and showcasing the stars that they have. And this was a perfect example. You had two big stars. Ta'amau is a fantastic quarterback. PJ Walker is a dynamic playmaker. Both fantastic quarterbacks, and we got to see that on display in this game. Not only just them, but then all of the pieces around them. Man, Phillips, the man is a touchdown machine. looking at him on that side of the ball. And then Pearson L stepping up in the second half and almost willing the team back to a win, I thought was just a fantastic. And then the game, inside of the game, when I'm looking at things, in that Jones had a big game, but then Jones was injured going into the game, and he was going to play. And then he played, and he was playing fairly well, and he got injured. They really kind of found a guy in Jones. They had to go back to Kristen Michael, and Kristen Michael didn't play a bad game. But there's just something that Jones has. Jones just has kind of this sense and this urgency about him that really gets him those extra few yards that Michael just doesn't have. And so as I'm looking at this, I'm seeing these things. And it was just a back and forth game, showcasing the talent. PJ Walker, listen, he's going to end up being the MVP of the league. His numbers weren't as great this week, but they didn't necessarily need to be. They had a couple interceptions. One where Tamau, he got his hand hit. The other one, he just made a bad decision that were returned down close to the goal line, and they punched the ball in, and they scored touchdowns. And so that was huge, for them. But to where he didn't have to throw the ball down the field as much. But, I mean, listen, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's what you want to look at. That's what you want in your quarterback. Still 65% completion rating. 170 yards, like I said, was a little bit down there. This week they had a long sack that they took, but all in all, just really, really nice. I was kind of surprised. I was a little bit surprised with just kind of how. So I was surprised that the defense for the Roughnecks actually gave the Battlehawks as much fits as they did. It really kind of surprised me in this game. They were all over Ta'amau. They sacked him 3 times, but they were in his face a lot and gave him a hard time, and the man still had an 81% completion rating. I mean, it just shows, again, we've got athletes against athletes. That athletic defensive line, those guys are studs, and this is like it's almost like college ball. They were getting pressure on the quarterback, rushing 4 men. These they are dudes up on that defensive line. And for Ta'amau to throw like he did, to do like he did, he is a stud. Like I said, I've been saying since day one, I look at him as a rookie. And for a rookie to come out and play like he has the first 2 weeks, this guy's a star in this league. They didn't pull it off this week, but they ran into the offense, this dynamic offense for the Roughnecks, and just a smothering defense, especially that defensive line, that make you make mistakes, and that was the difference. They made mistakes, and Houston took advantage of it, and Houston punched in touchdowns. And that's the 4-point win. Now, it does stink for me because I did take the Roughnecks and the points, so I got the loss. But listen, hey, after 2 weeks, I feel pretty good. I'm sitting 4-4. I'm 50%. I feel pretty good about that, especially on a new league that we really don't know a whole lot about. So I'm hoping I get better as well. With this, though, they need to get Matt Jones healthy. Matt Jones is their running back. He's their guy. He's a real big spark. They were doing a lot better when they had him in the game. However, talking about kind of the ebb and flow of the game, and I've talked about this before, how a team will do one thing, a team will figure it out, make adjustments, and then it's like that back and forth. And you saw that with both the offenses and the defenses. And the Battlehawks came out and they were kind of doing their thing. Houston started recognizing it and getting more pressure on the quarterback. Now, one of the things I think that hurt them is they were doing things, basing things off of the running backs and using the running backs a lot in their gameplay and things of that nature. And I think when Jones got hurt, they had to try to refigure things out. And that's when they got Pearson L really into the game. Now, he in Washington are two studs for this team. And I really liked how they were able to get that little dump pass, swing pass, a little wide receiver screen thing going on with Washington and them up the sideline with that. I thought that was a really nice play. I think they took advantage of the confusion on the defensive side of things, especially with getting that last player off and not being able to. But those guys are really going to be they're going to be their wide receiver studs there, and they really figured out how to use Pearson L in this game to where I think that going forward here, I think that you're going to see him more used in this offense, and I think that this offense is only going to get better. Listen, right now I know that this was a second loss for this team, but they probably just played the best team in the XFL to where this might be our championship come the end of the season. DC's playing fantastic ball. I'm really looking forward to seeing the two matchups between St. Louis and DC and how they match up with each other and that, because that defense is another stout defense. I just, like I said, I can't say enough that this was a fun game, kept me entertained the whole time. I was watching on the edge of my seat. It was very entertaining, an enjoyable experience. And that, I think Greg Olson and the guys up in the booth did a fantastic job. I wish Greg Olson would do. He's not as bad as Joey Galloway. Good night, Joey Galloway. You need to stop with trying to predict things. You are terrible at it. Greg Olson, I think he references the NFL too much. I think he needs to tone it back a little bit with it, and I think sometimes it's him trying to talk into things. It's not that bad, but I just kind of pull that back, and also pull the play prediction back. He was more trying to they would say concepts and things that he would know, and so he would try to then relate that to the field as opposed to Joey Galloway trying to tell us how smart he is. So as I see that. I feel like Fox has a better handle on this field access than ESPN does. ESPN's a little bit more shoddy with it. They don't understand the right times, when to chime in, when not to, and it just seems Fox has a little bit better handle on that whole situation. If in all honesty, to me, I feel like less is more in that situation. You chime in less, you get more out of it. Is kind of my thought process as a scenario with that. But yeah, all in all, look good. Phillips is a fan. He is an athlete. He's awesome. Guy's got 3 touchdowns again today. He's a stud. Holly, can't say enough about him. The more they can figure out how to use them, the better. He's just a dynamic player. He's their Julian Edelman, and why not? I mean, they both come from the same school, kind of that same kind of mold and thread with it, and he just has that kind of that just that edge that most people don't have, to where he can transcend positions and really put you at a disadvantage because he's so versatile. And so the more that they can continue to work him into the game, I think is going to be great, fantastic. Lewis had some good catches there. But I really would like to see them utilize Holly a little bit more in the run game. I really like the run that they did with him in that game. I thought it was a really neat play call that they did. Going forward, I'm curious to see if Houston will pick up on that. But I can't say enough about PJ Walker. He has just really showed us why he ended up being the starting quarterback. The man's the star of the league. What he can do back there is fantastic. I mean, the only other person we've seen do this kind of stuff is Lamar Jackson in the NFL. And I know that there's a little bit of a drop off in talent here, but oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm an NFL team, I don't know how I don't look at a guy like PJ Walker and want to put him out on the field. The guy's accurate. The guy knows where to throw the ball. Good night. He had two plays that I can remember off the top of my head where guys come clean at him, have a shot at him at his backside, and they can't bring him down for the sack. it boggles my mind how this guy gets out of these tackles in that with it. I mean, he's just a human highlight reel in that with it. And it bodes well again for the XFL. Game came down. It was a one-possession game late on in the game, and, it kept us interested the whole time. I can't say enough about the product that we got late Sunday night. If you didn't get a chance to watch that, you really missed out on a fun experience and a fun time of watching football and watching guys make plays. That defensive line for Houston, those guys are some studs, and they're going to be wreaking havoc throughout it. I look at right now, DC and Houston are on kind of a crash course to the championship, but don't disregard Dallas. Dallas is getting things together, and this Battlehawk team, they're young. And once they get some experience underneath them, especially Tamau, to figure some things out and do that team's those quite possibly could be your playoff teams come here, However, we've got a lot of football to play. We got 8 more games left, and I'm loving every minute of it, and I'm really enjoying this. To kind of wrap things all up, I think week 2, game-wise, was probably a little bit better than week 1. I was a little worried with Saturday. Saturday games were a little bit more flat than the Saturday was the first Saturday. However, the second week Sunday games were a lot better than the than the first week, Sunday games. To where the second week, the gameplay got better. It was better, and so the XFL is continuing to get better as they're going and giving us a better product and keeping people, into this. And as we go and we talk about this, we're going to get more and more people here. And again, I'm going to go back to it. The stars are shining. The XFL is allowing the stars to shine. They're getting good quarterback play. We've got some great quarterbacks in this league, and it's showing, and they're getting the balls to the playmakers, and we're starting to learn these guys. And guys are starting to stand out, and that's what you want. We're creating a brand here. This is something brand new, and we're creating a neat brand, and you're seeing it unfold in front of your eyes, and it's being a fun and a fantastic thing to experience and to be part of, and to say, I remember that. I remember before, so-and-so was big, before PJ Walker was, the MVP of the league, or Nelson Spruce, man. Do you remember when he was back on LA? That type of a thing. That's what we're starting here. So if you're just tuning in, it's the perfect time to jump right on the XFL and ride this thing out. All right, listen, I've had a fantastic weekend of watching football. I loved it. Hopefully you loved it as well. And that's really the question. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think of both of the games. Right now, we're just giving our reaction. We're not breaking anything down. We'll do that later on in the week. Hey, I'm healthy this week, so I think you guys should be excited for some content on breaking these games down, and we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of things this week. All right, well, I know that you're busy, and I know that I'm busy, so let's get on out of here. You have a good night.